You know the scenario. It usually happens at like, what, 3 in the morning?
Oh, yeah. Always the middle of the night.
Right. You're sound asleep, the house is perfectly quiet, and then you hear it.
That's scratching.
Exactly. That distinct, deliberate scratching sound coming from the void right above your ceiling fan. Or, maybe it's a sudden, heavy thud in the attic that totally defies any logical explanation of the house just settling.
It's terrifying. The psychological shift there is actually really fascinating.
Well, completely. Because in that exact fraction of a second, your home stops feeling like your private sanctuary and, well, suddenly feels like a breached fortress.
Yeah, that thin layer of drywall separating your bedroom from the attic
Yeah.
suddenly feels incredibly fragile.
It really does.
And you realize, you are sharing your climate-controlled environment with something totally wild, unpredictable,
Yeah.
and potentially very destructive.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive, where we are going to explore the mechanics of that exact structural breach.
It's a great topic.
Yeah, today our mission is to really unpack the highly technical, incredibly high-stakes world of nuisance wildlife control.
Which is way more intense than most people realize.
Seriously. And to do that, we're using a very specific case study. Our source material today focuses entirely on the operations, the methodologies, and the company profile of the Critter Squad, Inc.
Right, based down in Texas.
Missouri City, Texas,
Yeah.
specifically. They're a premier wildlife removal service down there.
And using a specific operator as a lens like this, it gives us a much clearer view of how modern wildlife management has actually evolved.
Because it's changed a lot, right?
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
The landscape of this industry is completely different than it was even 20 years ago. I mean, it requires a level of biological and architectural fluency that goes far beyond just, setting a trap in a corner.
Okay, let's unpack this, because what we're looking at in these sources isn't some cartoonish scenario of chasing a mouse with a broom.
No, not at all.
We are looking at a world of structural defense, severe biohazards, and what honestly looks like military-level logistics in this, ongoing daily battle between human habitats and suburban wildlife.
Well, the military comparison is quite literal when you look at the origins of our case study here.
Yeah, let's look at the foundation of this company, because the people executing these services obviously dictate the quality of the defense.
Right.
So the Critter Squad was founded in 2014 by Zach and Taylor Homan. They operate primarily out of Missouri City to serve Fort Bend County and the surrounding areas.
And they bring a lot of experience to the table.
Yeah, between their team, they have over 15 years of hands-on experience in nuisance wildlife management. But the detail that really jumps off the page to me is that they are a military veteran-owned and operated company.
Which fundamentally shapes their entire operational ethos.
How so?
Well, when you're dealing with a wildlife intrusion, yes, it's a biological problem, but it is ultimately a structural vulnerability.
Right, a physical hole somewhere.
Exactly. So a military background translates directly to a mindset focused on securing perimeters, assessing vulnerabilities in a physical structure, and executing a methodical, multi-phase operational plan to basically neutralize a threat.
I love that. And I'm looking at their core standards right now, which they state explicitly. They aim to, quote, do it right the first time without shortcuts.
Which sounds great on paper.
Right, but they actually back that up with a 100% written service guarantee. And frankly, my first instinct reading that is skepticism.
Oh, sure. Dealing with live animals, it's tough.
You're dealing with biological entities. I mean, a rodent can chew through siding, aluminum, and sometimes even concrete if there's a pre-existing structural flaw. So how does a company in this space actually underwrite a 100% guarantee without just going bankrupt from callbacks?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a fundamental shift from traditional pest control to actual structural engineering.
Okay, structural engineering.
Yeah, traditional pest control often operates on a subscription model of failure.
Oh, wow. A subscription model of failure.
Think about it. You put down poison, the animal dies, another animal moves in, you buy more poison.
Right. It's like putting a piece of duct tape on a burst pipe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a written 100% guarantee forces the operator to abandon symptom management and actually cure the disease.
So they aren't guaranteeing an animal will never try to enter.
No, they're guaranteeing that the physical fortifications they install, like the heavy gauge steel mesh, the reinforced soffits, the custom milled exclusion barriers, They're guaranteeing those will physically withstand the biological pressure of the local ecosystem.
That makes total sense. And the sources also mention they are fully licensed, insured, compliant with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department regulations, and members of the National Wildlife Control Operators Association.
Or NWCOA.
Right, NWCOA. That membership really caught my eye. It signifies a commitment to industry-leading, scientifically backed practices rather than just, buying a ladder and a truck and calling yourself an expert.
Absolutely. NWCOA standards dictate a rigorous understanding of animal behavior, zoonotic diseases, and building codes.
Building codes. Really?
Oh yeah, you cannot properly exclude a bat colony, for example, if you don't understand the precise aerodynamic requirements of their flight paths or the legal framework protecting them.
Which perfectly brings us to the first major theater of this suburban war, I guess you could call it. The roof in the sky?
The flying invaders.
Yes, specifically bats and birds.
This is where the intersection of applied behavioral science and stringent federal regulations becomes incredibly complex.
Well, according to the sources, bat removal is highly technical. The Critter Squad uses methods approved by Bat Conservation International.
Which is the gold standard.
Right. And specifically, they use these mechanisms called one-way valve exclusion devices. But let me stop you right there and ask about the mechanics of these valves. As I read this, I kept thinking, so it's essentially a wildlife turnstile.
Wildlife turnstile, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But how do you ensure the bat doesn't just fly out, realize it can't get back in through the valve, and then simply scurry, like a few inches to the left, and find another micro gap in the fascia board?
What's fascinating here is that your skepticism highlights the exact reason why the strict exclusion standard is so vital.
Okay.
That one-way valve. It is completely useless on its own.
Really?
Yeah, it only works if every other square inch of that roof line, every tiny gap, every loose shingle is completely identified and sealed first.
Oh, wow. Because they can fit through almost anything, right?
A bat can compress its body to fit through a gap roughly the width of a number 2 pencil.
A pencil? That is insane.
So the operators have to meticulously seal the entire upper envelope of the house, leaving exactly one exit point where the valve is installed.
So the bat drops out to hunt for insects at night, the valve safely closes behind it, and when it returns, it finds itself locked out of a completely fortified structure.
Exactly. It is a delicate, precise balance between protecting a homeowner's property and adhering to strict ecological conservation laws.
Because bats are protected.
Highly protected. The timing is legally mandated, too. They only remove bat colonies outside of the Texas maternity season to comply with state and federal laws.
What happens if you do it during maternity season?
Well, if you exclude a mother bat while her flightless pups are still inside, you not only violate federal law, but you create a mass mortality event inside the walls of the home.
Oh, yuck. Nobody wants that. I mean, we need bats in the ecosystem for insect control. We just don't need them establishing a maternity ward in the attic.
Precisely.
Moving on to bird control. This involves removing nests from exhaust vents and attics, bird-proofing ledges, and applying complete disinfection. And this isn't just about the noise of annoying chirping.
No, this is where the biohazard element really enters the chat.
Yeah, the sources mention the severe health risk of, let me get this right, Histoplasma capsulatum.
Yes, and the underlying mechanism of that pathogen is absolutely terrifying.
What is it exactly?
Histoplasma capsulatum is an airborne fungus found in dried bird droppings. And it thrives in the specific microclimate of a bird nest built inside a home's exhaust vent or a stagnant, hot Texas attic.
So how does it actually transmit to the homeowner? Are we talking about like a contact hazard if I touch it, or is it purely respiratory?
It is entirely an inhalation hazard.
Oh, no.
Yeah. When those droppings dry out, the fungal spores become completely desiccated and microscopic.
So they just float around?
Well, the moment a homeowner goes up to the attic to investigate a noise and shifts a cardboard box, or an untrained contractor opens an attic hatch, the change in air pressure aerosolizes those spores.
Just opening the door does it.
Just the air pressure change. You inhale them, and at human body temperature, the spores transform into a yeast that attacks the lung tissue, causing a disease called histoplasmosis.
That is genuinely nightmare fuel, which naturally segues us into the real heavyweights of attic destruction. The subtropical siege.
The mammals.
Yep. Raccoons, roof rats, and squirrels.
The scale of damage a mammalian invader can inflict on an attic in a remarkably short amount of time is staggering. We basically transition from the microgaps of bat exclusion to literal brute force entry.
Brute force is right. Raccoons are highly destructive. I mean, they possess immense physical strength and manual dexterity. They can literally tear through asphalt shingles and just rip off roof vents.
They're basically little bears with hands.
Right. And the Critter Squad handles humane trapping, which includes baby raccoon retrieval if a mother has nested up there. But again, the physical removal of the animal is only the beginning.
Yes, the cleanup.
The sources emphasize that cleanup is vital because raccoon droppings carry Baileys ascaris persinonis.
That is a roundworm parasite that is incredibly dangerous and potentially fatal to humans and pets.
Fatal. Are you serious?
Yes. And what makes Baileys ascaris so formidable is the environmental resilience of its eggs. A single raccoon can shed millions of eggs in its feces. Millions. And those eggs can survive in attic insulation, soil, or dust for years. They are completely resistant to standard household cleaners.
Okay, so if a raccoon has been living in your attic, your insulation isn't just dirty or compressed, it is a biologically compromised hazardous material site.
It really is. Attempting a DIY cleanup with, like, a shop vacuum simply aerosolizes the microscopic eggs, creating a massive inhalation and ingestion risk for the entire household.
So you need pros for this.
It requires specialized negative pressure containment and industrial decontamination protocols. You can't just sweep it up.
That is wild. Then we have the roof rats, also known as black rats. The sources point out that these animals are perfectly adapted to the Fort Bend County subtropical climate,
Yeah, there are arboreal rodents.
meaning they live in trees.
Right. Unlike Norway rats that burrow in the ground, roof rats thrive high up. They navigate trees, power lines, and unfortunately, the upper architecture of residential neighborhoods.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The approach to roof rats feels like fighting a highly adapted invading army. The sources explicitly emphasize that the most critical step isn't just trapping them.
No, trapping alone is basically useless.
It is fully locating and sealing every single entry point with rodent-proof materials. I mean, trying to trap your way out of a roof rat infestation without comprehensively sealing the house is like trying to bail water out of a sinking boat without plugging the hole in the hull.
That's a great analogy. You will never win that war of attrition. The local ecosystem always has more rats.
Always.
Right. If your house is emitting warmth, the scent of food, and the pheromones of previous rodents, there is always another rat ready to take the place of the one you just trapped. This really illustrates the concept of cascading consequences in wildlife intrusion.
Walk me through those cascading consequences, because we just hear scratching, right? But what is actually happening to the physical structure of the home while they're up there?
Well, it starts with compromised insulation. Rodents trample the fiberglass, urinate on it, and pack it down.
Which destroys the insulation value.
Exactly. It destroys its R value, which is the measure of thermal resistance. So suddenly your HVAC system has to work 30% harder, driving up your energy bills.
So it's costing you money every month.
Right. And then there is the physical destruction of the home's outer shell and internal systems. Rodent dentition never stops growing, so they have to chew constantly just to file their teeth down.
And what do they chew on?
Everything. Modern synthetic building materials, PEX plumbing pipes, and especially the thermoplastic insulation around electrical wiring are highly attractive chewing targets.
So they are literally chewing through the central nervous system of the house. That's a fire hazard waiting to happen.
A massive fire hazard.
Which brings us to the squirrels. They enter through roof lines, damage soffits, and utility gaps. And honestly, the most grim detail from the sources regarding squirrels, a major issue the Critter Squad handles, is odor removal when a squirrel dies inside a wall cavity.
Ugh, yes. The permeation of decay inside a confined structural space is profound.
I can't even imagine.
It's terrible. The gases expand, the odor seeps straight through the drywall, and it just permeates the entire house.
You can't just spray air freshener on that.
No, it requires professional extraction, which often means surgically opening the wall, physically removing the biological material, and applying enzyme-based decontamination agents to neutralize the organic matter.
Okay, so we've secured the sky, we've fortified the roof, and we've decontaminated the attic. Let's move down to the foundation.
The perimeter defense.
Right. The ground-level threats in Texas require a completely different tactical approach. We are looking at snakes, skunks, and armadillos.
Which is largely driven by the architecture of a home's foundation and the landscaping choices we make. Those dictate the vulnerabilities here.
Well, Fort Bend County has a robust snake population.
Very robust.
The Critter Squad handles venomous species. We're talking copperheads, rattlesnakes, and cottonmouths. alongside non-venomous species like rat snakes.
And it's not just removal.
Right, they perform active trapping but also implement snake-proofing protocols for properties with recurring issues. And then you have skunks.
Oh, skunk.
They love to take up residence under the dark, protected voids beneath decks and patios. The protocol there is humane trapping, burrow removal, and installing rigid exclusion barriers.
A skunk defending its territory under your floorboards or, heaven forbid, right next to your HVAC intake. It creates a property emergency with a very specific, highly disruptive scent profile.
Disruptive is a polite word for it.
It can literally render a home temporarily uninhabitable.
I believe it.
Hmm.
Finally, we arrive at the yard excavators, the armadillos.
These guys are relentless.
They cause immense property damage by rooting for grubs in the landscaping. The management strategy involves humane trapping and the installation of underground barriers to stop burrowing. But I have a serious logistical question about this armadillo defense.
Let's hear it.
You can build a heavy, solid wall above ground to stop a terrestrial animal, right? But how do underground barriers actually work against an animal whose entire existence, like millions of years of evolutionary programming, is based strictly on digging under obstacles?
This raises an important question about how we use geometry to counter biological imperatives.
Geometry.
Yeah. Look at the environment from the animal's perspective. Our perfectly manicured lawns, which are heavily watered and fertilized, are essentially curated buffets.
True, lots of bugs in there.
They are teeming with grubs, earthworms, and insects. To an armadillo, your front yard is basically a five-star restaurant.
So they are highly motivated to get in. How does the barrier defeat that motivation?
Well, an underground barrier isn't just a straight vertical wall in the dirt. It involves trenching down several feet and installing a heavy-gauge steel mesh.
Okay.
But the crucial mechanism is that the mesh extends down and then bends outward in an L shape, facing away from the structure.
Wait, it bends. Oh, so it creates a horizontal shelf underground.
Correct. An armadillo's brain is wired for linear excavation.
Straight.
Right. When they dig down at the edge of a foundation or a deck and hit that horizontal steel mesh, they try to dig straight through it. They cannot cognitively process the geometry required to pull back, walk backward 3 feet, and dig around the edge of the horizontal barrier.
Wow.
The barrier outsmarts the animal's natural instincts, and they eventually just give up and move on.
It is literally weaponizing their own behavioral psychology against them. I love that.
That's very effective.
So the operators have trapped the animals, pulled them out of the wall voids, extracted them from the attics, and secured the yards. But according to the sources, the physical extraction is only half the battle.
Usually the easiest half, honestly.
Which brings us to the final phase of the operation. What happens after the animal is gone? The true value of a specialized company like this lies in the restoration and their logistical accessibility.
Because the aftermath of an intrusion, the biological footprint left behind, is often much more hazardous than the initial breach.
Right. We are talking about full attic cleanouts, complete insulation removal and replacement, structural repair to fix the entry damage the animals caused.
Dead animal removal, too.
Yes, dead animal removal. And the comprehensive decontamination of odors, guano, and droppings to neutralize the pathogens we discussed earlier, like histoplasma and Bacillus ascaris.
And capping it all off is the exclusion work.
Permanently sealing the structure with custom animal-proof barriers to provide that long-term guaranteed protection.
You cannot separate extraction from restoration. If you remove the animal but leave the pheromone-soaked insulation and the chewed-open soffit, you are just preparing the habitat for the next occupant.
Right, you're just leaving the vacancy sign on. And a part of providing that comprehensive cure is being available the moment the biological emergency happens. The Critter Squad's logistics are built specifically for this rapid response.
Which is so important in this climate.
Definitely. Their phone lines are answered day and night, 24/7, 7 days a week. They provide free phone quotes, and same-day or next-day appointments are standard operating procedure.
Having a centralized local hub that operates around the clock is crucial for a community dealing with acute subtropical wildlife pressures. Because structural damage and biohazard exposure do not adhere to business hours.
No, they always happen at 3 a.m. on a Sunday. And the physical infrastructure required to support that level of response is substantial. Looking at their operational footprint, the Critter Squad maintains their physical hub at 7715 Sign Street in Missouri City, Texas, zip code 77489.
Right in the heart of their service area.
Yep. They field those around-the-clock emergency calls at 832-781-2050 and manage their intake and digital logistics through thecrittersquad.com. That isn't just a local business listing, that is the required framework for a biological emergency response unit operating in Fort Bend County.
It really highlights the sheer scale of the conflict between human development and suburban wildlife. You need an organized, fully equipped entity to manage the border between those two worlds.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's synthesize this. When you are lying in bed and you hear that scratching in the walls at 3 in the morning, your mind immediately races to the worst case scenarios of damage and disease.
Naturally.
But understanding the mechanics of modern wildlife control changes the equation. Knowing that there is a methodical, fully equipped, veteran-led local hub ready to respond means you aren't just calling someone to swing a net in your attic. You are calling in a specialized structural defense team.
You are calling for a comprehensive perimeter reset. You are asking professionals to evaluate the physical integrity of your home against the biological pressures of the outside world.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the Critter Squad's comprehensive exclusion-first approach to wildlife management in Fort Bend County, take a moment to look around your own home. Consider the vulnerabilities in your own defenses.
It's worth doing.
Look at the tiny gaps in your roofline, the state of your vent covers, and the landscaping choices resting right against your foundation. Proper professional exclusion isn't just a reactive pest control measure. It is a fundamental, proactive investment in your property's structural longevity and your family's health.
And I would leave you with this final thought to mull over. We spend immense amounts of time, energy, and money making our homes perfectly climate-controlled, structurally secure, predator-free environments for ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
But in doing so, aren't we inadvertently creating the ultimate, irresistible luxury resorts for wildlife?
That's a great point.
As human development continues to expand and push further into natural habitats, will future architecture and home design have to fundamentally evolve? Will the residential homes of the future need to be designed to naturally repel this suburban siege right from the original blueprint phase, rather than relying on retrofitted defenses after the walls had already been breached?